Hey guys, welcome back to First and 10 over here on Clueless Gamers. I'm your host, Pete, joined as always by my co-host, Brian and Bri. It's kind of a bittersweet moment, as it always is at the end of every year. This is the final episode for the 2025 and now 26 NFL season here. Of course, this is the Super Bowl episode where we recap Super Bowl 60, where the Seattle Seahawks defeated the New England Patriots 29-13 in a game, Bri, that really wasn't a game. It was kind of, the score makes it even look closer than it was. Whether it was 6-0 or whether it was the final score, this game never felt close. And frankly, even from the Seattle perspective, I think most people who didn't have a rooting interest in this game, it was kind of a boring Super Bowl. It was kind of a dud. There wasn't a lot going on, particularly to the fourth quarter, where, just the final kind of cherries on top or garbage time points were being scored at that point. But Bri, I welcome you in, man. How are you doing? I know you watched the Super Bowl covering this from work. What'd you think of it? And then we'll dive into the rest of the game. What was your general thoughts on the game?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was nice to be able to survive the frigid temperatures that we all had to
Brutal
deal with in
weekend.
this area. I mean, with the wind, it got like well below zero. It was
Yeah.
dangerous cold out there. But yeah, the game, it was not a great game. I don't think necessarily it was maybe as bad as some people are portraying it. It just seems like there's kind of a bias where in a low scoring game, people rush to call it like a boring game.
Yeah.
And see, I did think for parts of it, rather than bad offense, it was more good defense.
Okay.
And, for some of it, like I just thought the way Seattle played in the secondary and how aggressive they were getting after Drake May. It was impressive to watch the display they had on the defensive
For
side. Now, I
sure.
know Chris Collinsworth it can sometimes overstate things, and he called it like one of the best defensive performances he's
Yeah.
ever seen,
It's a
which
little much.
might have been a little bit much. And we know the Patriots did kind of pad some stats there after
Yeah.
the game was over. But I, like I said, but no, I'm not mixing this game up for a classic or anything close to a great game. But I do think it was a little overstated just how bad it was, because I think sometimes defense comes to play, and that can be good football too. It doesn't just have to be a
Yeah.
track meet to be an entertaining game. So that's kind of one thing that I thought of it right off the bat.
Yeah, 100%. I respect that. For me, I disagree just because for me, I thought it was fairly boring. I actually thought last year, where it was a blowout, I thought that was actually a more entertaining Super Bowl because the Eagles just, I felt, dominated offensively and defensively in a way that I just don't think on both sides of the ball Seattle did. Now, Seattle's defense was great, but they were also going up against kind of, a second-year player, an overmatched Patriots team, as we talked about, with a bad offensive line, two rookies on the left side. Seattle's defense is excellent, but I think that added to it, where last year I think the Chiefs' offensive line was banged up at the end of the year, but just the mystique of the Chiefs, of Patrick Mahomes, of the rematch of those two teams, and just how dominating on both sides of the ball the Eagles were, I thought that was a better one. I will say this was a better Super Bowl. I could see your perspective. This was a better Super Bowl than Broncos-Seahawks, where, many years ago, I believe that one was played in MetLife, where that was, from
Yep.
the opening jump, was terrible. The snap goes over
Mhm.
Peyton Manning's head, and pretty much the game was completely over a couple minutes after that. So definitely better than that, but in terms of drama, nothing really there. Most of this game through the first three quarters, it's a field goal fest. It's 12-0 at one point from Seattle. It's not even like Seattle was, it's 28-0 and they're just loading up on touchdowns. I just would have liked to see a little bit more, where I don't think the Patriots defense played that fantastically. I think it was more Seattle's offense wasn't clicking on the necessary cylinders when they got on the New England side of the field, where I thought on the other side, New England's offense kept being exactly what they've been all postseason, which has been a mess, and Seattle's defense was swarming excellent, overwhelming, and just thoroughly outmatched. By far, out of the 4 units, if you want to say, on the field between the two defenses and the two offenses, Seattle's defense far and away the best unit on the field there. And we get one of those awkward results, right? We all probably play, boxes and scores and try to make some money on quarters and final scores. I had 7 Seattle, 0 Patriots. I thought I was sitting pretty. Didn't get any of those numbers through all 4 quarters. So that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And, overall, an interesting season, I would say. I feel like this game was fitting for the season. We've talked all season long, Bri. It was weird. Things didn't make a lot of sense with the typical teams that are at the top, i.e. the Chiefs were terrible. They went 6-11. Mahomes tears his ACL. It was just a strange year, and I think it was fitting that a defensive-led team, really, with a quarterback who's on his 4th team, who played really well all season. It was just one of those stories coming together. And, it was a good season, and I was glad to share it with you. But, Bri, let's jump into the minutia of the game here. Of course, as I said, Seattle knocked off the Patriots 29-13. Sam Darnold finishes kind of a pedestrian 19 for 38 for 202 and a touchdown. No turnovers. He did not have a turnover in the entire postseason after leading the league in interceptions in the regular season. So I thought that was a really not only stark contrast, but really showed, I think, his growth and the understanding of the offensive staff of Seattle of we don't really need to put this guy in positions where he has to force the ball. Now, there was a few passes early on in this game, Bri, where they could have been interceptions, especially in that first quarter, but he got away with it. The Patriots didn't kind of capitalize, and Seattle did what they did, where it was a complete opposite of what they knew they had to do in the NFC Championship against the Rams. Darnold played the best game of his career. They knew they had to go tit for tat with Matt Stafford. In this game, they really knew they had their defense to stop Drake May, and they just had to control the ball, make plays. And Kenneth Walker was the star of this game, man. JSN, he kind of gets banged up a little bit with the ankle. He gets evaluated with a concussion. He doesn't really do much in this game, and yet they were still impactful and controlled the clock and controlled down the field and really dominated this game in that perspective. What was your takeaway from the Seattle offense of watching it last night?
Yeah, I mean, the Seattle offense had a very pedestrian game. I mean, this game was easily won for them on the defensive side, and maybe equally so the special teams. The special teams was just terrific, from Jason Myers knocking in all 5 of his field goals.
Yeah.
The punter, Michael Dixon, was an unsung
He was
hero.
excellent.
How many just perfect punts, nailed them deep, got out of bounds. I mean, it was just a perfect night for him. But the offense, Darnold really didn't play all that well. He had a decent amount of pressure in his face.
He missed some throws.
I think the best thing you could say about his game is that he did well to avoid the pressure. There were times where it looked like he would be swallowed up, and he kind of was able to evade it and make a play downfield a little bit. So that was a big difference. But from his first throw, which was a completion to Barner, who ended up having a touchdown later in the game, he was the player who kind of proved to be the X factor, not anyone than we thought, although Cooper Kupp, he did okay, led the team in receiving. My guy, Rashid Shaheed, was kind of a no-show, didn't play a big role, and then Hunter Henry on the other side, not much, as there really wasn't anything on the New England offense. But, yeah, I mean, Seattle, they leaned heavily on the running game. Like you said, there wasn't much from JSN. He had that one chance early in the game, right, on kind of a broken play where he
Darnold missed him. Darnold missed him almost.
Missed him. It would have been like an 80-plus yard touchdown, and that would have, he would have had a big game no matter what else he did.
He missed Shaheed on that one bomb, too. Later in the game, he had Shaheed. It was just a step too much. Yep. Shaheed kind of lost his footing, and there was an incomplete pass on that one.
Yep, and I got to give Christian Gonzalez credit. I mean, he covered well.
He was
in
the best
secondary.
Patriot all night.
He was, and like we said, Darnold didn't have that great of a game. I picked him to be the Super Bowl MVP. Clearly, this was a game where they were not relying on stellar quarterback play because the defense played so well. The special teams chipped in, and Kenneth Walker carried the mail. And what a postseason for him after a
Incredible.
very pedestrian regular season. I mean, it really seemed like the injury to Charbonnet lit a fire under him
It
where he
unlocked
wanted
them.
to
Yeah.
prove that he could be the guy. And boy, did he deliver time and again in these big games. So major props to him. He came up huge.
Yeah, he ends up going 27 carries for 135 yards. He, of course, had that touchdown called back that really would have sealed it for him. He would have been close to 200 yards after that run. He also added 2 catches for 26 yards, which were important as well. What he's been able to do, especially in these last 2 games, out of the backfield, and particularly even in the receiving game where he's not known to be a receiving running back with Charbonnet out for the season, I thought it was, is the reason why they were a huge reason why they were in the Super Bowl and a huge reason why they won the Super Bowl. And I thought he was the unquestioned, had to be the MVP. If you weren't going to give it to him, you had to give it to Myers, and you probably weren't going to give it to a kicker, right? It's never happened in NFL history. I think I saw some people say, and I kind of agreed, if he maybe hit one more field goal, maybe with 6, maybe he would have won the MVP. But considering most of the field goals were pretty short, it wasn't anything insane. It wasn't like he was drilling 55-yarders every time.
Yeah.
I think they made the right decision in Kenneth Walker winning the MVP. It just, sucks for him that he kind of got his moment there at the end, called back on the hold by the center that happened in the game. I actually picked A.J. Barner as my offensive Seattle X Factor, so that ended up actually working out as he had the only Seattle offensive touchdown in the game. So I was at least happy to see that moment. It's no surprise. You see the hat I'm wearing. Everyone who's known this podcast, obviously I was rooting against Seattle, but I picked them because I try to be an unbiased person. They were just the better team. I mean, they clearly were going to win, and every Bostonian, everyone that was so offended, and I understand you want to defend your team, but everyone that was so offended about how could you say that the real Super Bowl was played in the NFC Championship? That's so disrespectful. We all had eyes. And that's why everyone was saying that. We knew the Rams and the Seahawks were the 2 best teams, especially after Bo Nix goes down with the injury. We knew they were the best teams, and we knew whoever was winning that game was most likely winning the Super Bowl. Now, that being said, if the Rams played the Patriots, probably would have been a closer game just because the Rams' defense is not as dominant. So I think it would have been a closer game. I don't think it would have been a lopsided victory like this. But still, all in all, Sam Darnold, he did what he needed to do. He game managed. He didn't make the big mistakes. He got away with a couple, and he's the Super Bowl champion. I mean, all his journey from being drafted 3rd overall by the Jets and going to Carolina and being a backup in San Francisco and then going to Minnesota and now ending up here in Seattle. First quarterback ever leading 2 different teams in consecutive seasons to 14 or more wins. I think he validated, Bry, a lot of the trash talk that people, and rightfully so, right? I was saying last year, this guy, look, I believed in him last year. I picked him to win week 18 over the Lions. He let me down. He goes against the Rams in that kind of weird game that's in Arizona. He gets annihilated, gets sacked 9 times. He looked like a deer in headlights. I think it was fair to question him coming into the season and coming into this postseason. And he had 6 interceptions against the Rams in 2 regular season games. The games that he's played, particularly in the last 2 games of this playoff run, Bry, I think he deserves a ton of credit. Where are you at on Sam Darnold, specifically speaking as a Jets fan, right? That had Darnold all these years ago. I know it's a very different situation in terms of team infrastructure, but where are you on Sam Darnold as a whole as he wraps up his season as a Super Bowl champion?
Yeah, I mean, he elevated his status tremendously. That's what happens by the very nature of a quarterback winning a Super Bowl and, it not like it being Trent Dilfer where he's carried by the
No,
rest of his
no, no.
team. I mean, Darnold had a big hand in it, even if he wasn't a Mahomes or Josh Allen-esque level. So when a quarterback wins a Super Bowl and he has a big hand in it and has a big hand in the season and the games that get you to the Super Bowl. See, I think like if he had just kind of a pedestrian playoff, maybe we don't think as much of him. He's still elevated just by the fact that
Yeah.
he is a Super Bowl winner. but the fact that he had the game that he did in the NFC title game,
Yeah.
outdueling the guy who ended up winning the MVP and a future Hall of Famer, that's the game, that says his status is supplanted, and then you win the Super Bowl. It's the cherry on
Of
top.
course.
So he elevated himself a lot, and we're going to do an interesting exercise later where you and I give our top 10 quarterbacks going into next season. I'm
I'm
interested
excited.
where he falls. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. We're going to get to that in just a little bit, Bry. But I want to talk even a little bit more here, stats wise, of the Seattle defense before we head over to the Patriots. Seattle on the night, 11 QB pressures, 6 sacks, which was, I think, tied for third in Super Bowl history in terms of team sacks. They were just after Drake May all night long. And even times that I don't think they were, credited with QB pressures, they were affecting his play. They were making him hesitant to run. I think the shoulder injury had part to do with that as well. And he just looked like a lost puppy out there. He really had no idea what was going on. I think it's a credit to Mike McDonald, what he was able to scheme up, how excellent of a mind he is. And, Brian, I want to talk about a little bit with this defense and Mike McDonald. I think they have some expensive veteran pieces, right? And Lawrence and they have Leonard Williams. But there's a lot of young guys. John Snyder, man, he's a hell of a GM, one of the best GMs in the league. The drafts he's done are just outright incredible. And this defense is still, for the most part, young. It's cheap. And I think, in my mind, we have to start talking about Mike McDonald after the season as one of the bright, young, and best coaches in the league. And that's not, he just won a Super Bowl and he's 38. I think Kyle Shanahan, I think Sean McVay, we've talked at length about what we think of those guys, the respect we have for them. I think he deserves to be right in that class, right? Where Kevin O'Connell gets a lot of praise, a lot of shine. He's never won a playoff game, right? I think what Mike McDonald's proven in this run, getting the number 1 seed, winning 3 straight games, being a Super Bowl champion and what his defense produced in most of these games. And even Stafford put up all those numbers in the last 2 games against that defense. But when they needed it, they stopped Stafford. They stopped him on 4th and goal. And I think he deserves a lot of credit. Where are you at as well on where Mike McDonald kind of sits right now in coaching going into next year? Do you view him as one of those young stars? Has he established himself?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say yes. I mean, if you win a Super Bowl this early on in your coaching tenure, you're already high on the list. And, he's a guy who was in the Ravens organization for a while as the defensive coordinator. John Harbaugh, what a great head coach to learn under,
Yeah.
learn the ropes of coaching and found really a perfect spot. I mean, at the time, it was a little controversial, I think, of Pete Carroll run coming
Yeah.
to an end there after all he accomplished in Seattle. And it's like, oh, you're going to find someone better than Pete Carroll, and you
They
don't
did.
maybe you don't say that yet, but yeah, I mean he's won a Super Bowl, and Pete Carroll's last dance in the NFL did not go well, as we know, there
No.
with the Raiders. So yeah, I mean, McDonald's did a terrific job. Their defense was overwhelming in this game. I think it probably caught some people by surprise. I think there were a lot of people in this game that watched and were like, gee, I didn't realize this Seattle defense was quite this good. And, you could just see the impact right away, just the depth that they had on the defensive line, all the different guys that were able to get after Drake May. And it was really all levels of the defense. Like they pressured May and they covered the receivers
Yeah.
terrifically in the secondary. I mean, I haven't seen as good of coverage in an NFL game in a long time. Just easily breaking up passes and perfect coverage. And we know how hard it is to cover in today's NFL, and they were almost flawless in the way they did it.
Yeah, Brian, I want to look at from Mike McDonald, and he deserves all the credit in the world. But just for a second here, can we look at the last few drafts of John Snyder and the Seattle Seahawks? I have it pulled up right here. In 2022, they draft Charles Cross, who was their starting left tackle yesterday. They bring him in the 2nd round that year. Kenneth Walker, who obviously was the Super Bowl MVP, and Abraham Lucas was another offensive tackle that was playing Kobe Bryant in their secondary, Tariq Woolen. That was all in
Hmm.
that draft, and you've seen all those guys yesterday. Just take a journey with me. So let's go to 2023. I have it pulled up here just for accuracy. 5th overall, they get Devin Witherspoon. In that same
Mhm.
round, in the first round, they get JSN. They come back in the second round and get Derek Hall, who had 2 sacks last night. Zach Charbonnet was also in that second round as well. Okay, wow, that's pretty good. 2022, 2023. Let's go to the next 2 years. 2024. Byron Murphy the second out of Texas, a player I love that the Rams wanted. He had 2 sacks last night as the defensive tackle as well. And then later in that draft, in the 4th round, they took A.J. Barner, who had the only offensive touchdown of the game for Seattle. And then let's go to this past year in 2025. In this draft, they took Greg Zabel in the 1st round, who ended up being their starting and excellent guard that they've had all season long. In the 2nd round, it was Nick Amamwari. And we've known kind of he's been kind of the utility knife all year long. And even, he didn't have an impact here. He kind of got banged up this season. Even in the 5th round, getting Torrey Horton, a player out of Colorado Colorado State that I think is actually an interesting player going into next year. You look at those drafts, Brian, that's just from the last 4 years. That's not even free agency, whether it's Williams or Lawrence or Darnold or any of these guys. That's insane level stuff. Those are guys that are not just names on a stat sheet. They made impact plays last night in the Super Bowl. And that, to me, just speaks to what this organization is, that they are excellent top to bottom. They are one of the premier organizations in football. And I think while everyone always wants to crown in the NFC West the 49ers, right? Because they've had a lot of success. They've never gotten over the hump. They never seem to stay healthy. And they've made some really rough moves. The Trey Lance one, just to name one. Look at what John Snyder's doing in Seattle. I don't think he gets the credit, Bri, he deserves. Do you think that's the same way? Because that's crazy.
Yeah, and they have 2 titles now to show for it and should have 3. I mean, they're
Yeah,
close to having 3 titles under that regime. So, I mean, the word that comes to mind is masterful. When you
masterful.
list off that litany, I just think about how in one draft they got cornerstone players on each side of the ball. You get Witherspoon on defense, JSN on offense in the same round, I think you
Amazing.
said. I mean,
Yeah,
that
first round.
you can't do much better than that. And you look at some of the teams why they don't have success, all you have to do is look at the drafts. I mean,
Yep.
you could pull up a myriad of Giants and Jets drafts in recent years and basically not recognize a single name.
Yeah,
And then you wonder, oh, this is why the team is where it is, the
100%.
Jets in particular.
Yeah, and I think you also have to look at, I think Snyder got a lot of criticism in the offseason. Not really from us, but from a lot of others. That, you trade away DK Metcalf. What are you doing, right? You're bringing in Darnold. You're trading away his number one. They knew what DK Metcalf could do and couldn't do, and they knew the distraction he could be. We saw it. We saw it in Pittsburgh this year. And they knew quietly in the building where JSN, kind of his first couple of years, it wasn't great. And they knew they had something there. I remember seeing him at Ohio State, and I remember when he came into the league, and I was like, wow, he's kind of underwhelming, right? He's behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, maybe they kind of missed on this guy. And what he was able to blossom in this year, and having a downfield thrower, a timing thrower, a strong quarterback in Sam Darnold, I think that is just another kind of feather in the cap to what John Snyder did, along with obviously the piece de resistance in bringing in Sam Darnold, giving him more money than the low ball offer that Minnesota gave him of, I think, just another $10 million. That was key, and that's what set up this run here, Brian. They deserve a hell of a lot of credit. And even though it's hard to repeat, it's hard to even get there the next year. We'll see how they deal with Clint Kubiak, who, announced last night, even though we talked about it on the last show, that he officially today signed a 5-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders to become their new head coach. Yeah, sure, losing your coordinator, that can impact you, right? We'll have to see how that goes. But I think this team is really going to be there next year, Brian. I think they're loaded. I think they're only going to get better. And why wouldn't you believe in Schneider's drafting going forward, even if they're picking 32nd? Bright, on the other
Yeah,
side.
well,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just feel like it's the ultimate team where, there's a lot of
Yeah,
teams that may have really good quarterbacks, and we know so much of the emphasis is on the quarterback, but what it takes to win is really the full complement of the
yep.
roster, and that's exactly what Seattle exhibited in this run. Like you look at the Bills, as good as Josh Allen is,
Yep.
and he's great, the team around him probably not all that great. And Seattle had a quarterback that got the job done, but had a team that got the job done, from the offense to the defense to the special teams, everywhere in between. And I think that's what you'd say about this group.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And, now all these clips obviously come out 2 years later about, what McDonald envisioned for this team and what he told them and how much he builds about family. You saw the players talking about that even last night. That I saw a story where that came out last night that he has at least every 4 weeks. He has a part of the meeting for like an hour or a half hour, something like that, to get all the guys in different groups to talk to each other. They could talk football, but they also could talk about life and learn their families and their kids' names and what they're into. And I think that is such a smart decision because I think so much NFL jobs can be just like any job where you come in, you clock out, and you really don't know your coworkers. And I don't think that makes for good teams. And building that culture and that family, I think culture sometimes is an overstated word. I think a lot of companies, especially in industries like ours, they could throw that stuff around and it really doesn't mean anything. This meant something, and these guys really were a brotherhood, and I think it showed from every level and how they played all season long and culminated in a Super Bowl championship. Brian, on the other side, let's talk about the New England Patriots, man, because obviously we have to. Drake May, I would say, for a guy that was in an extremely close MVP race, yes, it's a regular season award, played as bad as I think you can remember of a guy that almost won the MVP. Pretty much every one of his playoff games, Brian, the four he played, was not good. And this was by far his worst one. Now, look, it's not all on him. The offensive line, as we highlighted, as many people highlighted, is not really that good. This team reminded me of a worse version of the Cincinnati Bengals in 2021, where I thought that team was better, but at the same time, their offensive line was really bad. Burrow gets sacked 7 times against the Rams, ultimately losing that one. May gets sacked 6 times in this game, gets sacked the most, I think 21 times in the playoffs, which broke the NFL record since they've been keeping sacks. Obviously, a list you do not, and a record you do not want to break, and a list you do not want to be on. It's not just all the offensive line, Bry. He holds onto the ball way too long most of the time. He hesitates sometimes running. His accuracy has just been off all playoffs long, which was he led the league in completion percentage this year. That was kind of his calling card. He just didn't have it. I don't want to say, oh, it was the shoulder injury. He was getting his shoulder shot up. I think that's an excuse. I think over these games against the Chargers, the Texans, the Broncos, and now the Seahawks, he played bad, Bry. I don't typically believe in these stats, but if you want to just throw this in there, I know a lot of people with the MVP race wanted to throw in that EPA stat, along with, common opponent, strength of defense is all this crap. If you want to go to EPA, he had one of the worst EPAs. I believe he had the worst EPA of any quarterback since they've been keeping that statistic in playoff history. Below Kerry Collins for the Giants in 2000, below Jared Goff in 2018, below a lot of guys, or I should say above it because it was so poor. He wasn't good. And I think the moment overwhelmed him. I think he was a deer in headlights. And regardless if he's playing a good or a great defense or not, he needed to play way better. He didn't. And that's why they end up getting dominated in this game. Brian, what do you think of the Patriots offensively and Drake May kind of rounding out his season in the second year?
Well, I mean, you have to say the Patriots' offense was non-existent. I mean, it felt like they never had a chance. I agree with your point that May looked like a deer in the headlights. It kind of reminded me of Jared Goff's performance in
Yeah.
the Super Bowl, which is one that obviously you want to
Painful.
forget as
Painful.
much as possible. But yeah, I mean, the thing was, like, there were opportunities to make plays, and there weren't many, but when he did have an opportunity, he missed. I mean, there was one play, Austin Hooper, wide open
Yeah.
on what would have been like a good
Yep.
30-yard gain, ball's just nowhere close. And then, he starts to gain a little momentum. They have the one drive where they score the touchdown, the two big plays to Matt Collins. They get the ball back. He's starting to move the ball. They immediately make the comment on the broadcast, oh, Drake May is starting to find a rhythm
Yep.
here. What happens the next
Pick.
play? He throws that horrendous interception
Horrible
to the
pick.
former Giant, Julian Love. And Chris Collinsworth's just like, yeah, I got nothing for you
He
here.
really did.
And I mean, like when you watch the replay of that, it was like,
I don't know what
how
he was
did he
looking at.
think that ball was
Yeah.
going to be? Yeah, I mean, you talk about one of the worst interceptions that you could see in any game, let alone the Super Bowl. Like, it was just that kind of game. I mean, clearly to me, he was rattled by the constant pressure. Seattle just got after him with so many different guys, and it just felt like they had no answers. They couldn't adjust. When there was a play to be made, he misfired.
Yeah.
They put some points on the board basically in garbage time, but outside of that, they just couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, I think ironically, Sam Darnold's been made his career that, oh, I'm seeing ghost, right? And that was against the Patriots. I thought it was ironic that
Yeah.
he's the quarterback on the other side, and I felt all night Drake May, especially as the second quarter on, he was seeing ghosts all night. And,
Yep.
that pass rush was there. They were getting home with 4. I'm not saying it's not real because it was, and it was ferocious. But he also was he was off because he was nervous. And no matter how great of a QB you could be, we've seen it with the legends, we've seen it with the young stars, we've seen it with the mediocre quarterbacks. If you heat a quarterback up, they're a human being. They do not like getting hit over and over and over, and it throws off timing. Football is a timing game at this level, and we saw that. The Hooper one, I think, is a great one that you highlighted as well. The pick he throws, where it looked like that was the only momentum that they had of the night. I said to my daddy, I was watching
Yep.
the game with him, and I said, all right, look, they got the touchdown to Matt Collins after a stupid non-penalty call that Seattle should have been called. Jobs should have been thrown out of the game. He punched Diggs in the face, grabbed his face mask. That was a horrible job by the referees that they did not catch that. 2 plays later, a play to Matt Collins, another one for the touchdown. They get a 3 and out for Seattle, and I'm like, uh-oh, they're moving the ball on the next drive, and I'm like, hold on, they might have some momentum here. And as soon as Chris Collinsworth, as you highlighted, said, it's like a crosser, and he throws it in like triple coverage, and that was the game.
Yeah.
So the first, 8 drives of the game, I think through 3 quarters, I think the Patriots punted, or 7 drives of the game. And then the 8th one, I think it was 6? Yeah, 7, 8. First 8 were punts, and the 9th drive of the game for the Patriots was a fumble. That's what they did through 3 quarters. They punted 8 times, kneeled it down once, if you want to count that drive at the end of the half, and fumbled the ball. That's just terrible. I mean, that's awful. They had, I think, something like 56 yards, I think, in the first half is what they accumulated as a team. And where Seattle was kind of just taking the points, hanging around, hitting field goal after field goal, the Patriots could do next to nothing. And I think this, before we get back to the Patriots, I think just overall, this is a PSA, because we talked about this. Me and you were big on this all season long. These coaches that are obsessed with constantly going for it on 4th down, just watch this game. If you could feel the momentum, there's times you have to go for it. But if you feel the momentum where you know that offense ain't going to score jack unless you help them, take the points. Because eventually 3 becomes 12, becomes 19. And before you know it, the game's over. That's how you bury a team. And I think it's a lesson for the Sean McVays, the Dan Campbells, the Ben Johnsons. Sometimes just take the points depending on the flow of the game. And I think Mike McDonald led a masterclass in that. But back on the Patriots, it's one of the more pitiful performances I think I've ever watched. I mean, I think we knew going into this game that the Patriots couldn't really run the ball. I said Travion Henderson would have to be the guy. They really didn't use him for most of the game. They stayed with Stevenson. They couldn't get anything going. What a bad night, Bri, on the biggest stage you could for rookie left tackle Will Campbell, man. I mean, the guy was a turnstile. And I think the concerns coming into the draft about his short arms, and it has to be a certain length for offensive linemen, and some people are going, oh, it's so ridiculous. That's why. That is why they make a big deal out of this. Sometimes scouts are right, because you need that length to keep away these lengthy defenders. He got owned all night. He got bull rushed. He got speed rushed. He couldn't do anything, and I think almost without a doubt, Bry, he's going to be a guard next season. That offensive line, they're going to have to get a new left tackle. He's not going to do it. But I also want to say, just, they kind of get some garbage time points there in the fourth quarter, and really the game's out of hand. What also a poor showing from just the skill position guys, right? Like, Booty had some plays where he had a couple drops. Diggs was non-existent. Outside of those couple plays, you really didn't hear anything from Matt Collins. The tight ends and Hunter and Hooper really didn't do anything. I thought even in a rough moment, no one on the offense really helped Drake May in that offensive line. And that, I definitely was a little shocked by of how poorly they performed. Were you shocked by that as well, or is this more just a Drake May issue for you?
Well, I don't put it solely on Drake May, but I just think it's more the credit to the Seattle defense just having their way. I mean, I guess you could say you expected more out of Diggs. I mean, he's kind of the one guy that I would expect more from, but I don't think this is an offense that really has a whole lot of playmakers. So I think that's something that's going to have to be addressed. I mean, I thought Hunter Henry would be more involved in the game plan. He
Yeah.
really not much out of him. The receiving group, they didn't really have a lot of explosiveness. So, yeah, I mean, Drake May obviously didn't help the situation, but I feel like they could use a little uptick in personnel on that side of the ball.
I definitely think they could use someone else, but I just always push back on, they don't really have any weapons. They got better weapons than Buffalo's got right now. They got better weapons than a lot of playoff teams had. And I just think they have a lot of solid guys, right? At this point, Diggs, he had a good year, but he's not like an A+ guy. He's more like a B+ guy at best. I think they have a lot of good Bs. And I think that's good enough if you have a better offensive line, you're not starting two rookies on the left side, and you just have better QB play. I think, Bryant, as an expanded thing before we get off of this, Drake May, what do you think of his precipitous drop-off in the postseason as a whole? What do you attribute that to after he had such an excellent regular season? 4 games, kind of 4 duds. What do you attribute that to as you watch this playoff run? Just nerves in his first playoff run?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be part of that. I do think, the injury probably played some degree of factor. I mean, a shoulder injury for a quarterback, I don't think, can be just canceled
Yeah.
completely. I mean, I think you have to weigh that in as a factor. The weather didn't help, as we know, in the Denver game, the AFC title game. But, maybe he was just due to kind of come back to earth a
Yeah.
bit, and that his regular season was sort of above anyone's expectations, and, there was kind of a regression to the mean that a lot of people maybe would have thought would have come in the regular season. He was so good, so consistent in the regular season, and suddenly, you're facing better defenses. You got the shoulder acting up a little bit. So I think it's kind of those things adding up together. I don't really have long-term concerns. I think May is clearly
Mhm.
going to be the guy there and be a very good quarterback. But you would have to say it's a little alarming that his play slipped to this level and that it wasn't just one game, that it was basically 4 games in a row. So that does raise some eyebrows.
I think for me it raises eyebrows because it validates what I've been saying almost all season long, what a lot of people have been saying, that they played a cupcake schedule. They played a cupcake schedule, easiest schedule in 25 years, and everyone, especially Patriots fans, hated that point, said it's so overrated. It really wasn't. Look at the statistics if you go back of the Patriots' record and the way offensive efficiency that they played against teams 500 above, particularly playoff teams, and look at how they played against the below 500 teams. If you look it up, I'm sorry, I don't have the statistics on me right now. It's night and day. I saw it earlier today. It is night and day. And we're talking about a team that played a fourth-place schedule. They won 4 games last year. They deserve a lot of credit. They had a hell of a season, man. And I think Drake May is going to be a star in this league, assuming he keeps progressing and they get, help around him, particularly on the offensive line. But I am interested, Bry, to watch next year that they're going to play a very difficult schedule, particularly on the road next season, playing a first-place schedule. That's going to be a put up or shut up for me with Drake May. Was this kind of a lightning in the bottle season? It was more about circumstance more than how much he's really grown and how the Patriots have played as a team. or is he the it guy? I think we're going to learn a lot about that next season as that progresses. But I don't think it's everything, the schedule. You have to play who is in front of you. But I do think now it validates people saying that, and I was saying that I don't really believe in this team. And I think they've had a super easy run. They played awful playoff Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud awful, and Jarrett Stidham. Like, that plays a factor. And it is, to me, it's kind of a little ignorant, and it's disingenuous not to consider that factor. And I don't think it's everything, but I think it is a large thing as we saw this result. And we'll see how next season plays out when they have a much more difficult schedule. But Brian, before we get off of this and we go to our little game, how much do you weigh in on the whole schedule and the run the Patriots have? Does that do anything for you, or you don't really care about that?
No, I think you make a good point, and I'm interested too, like how they follow up this AFC title season next year when they're playing a much more difficult schedule. And we've seen a lot of teams in this league that have had success one year, and you think, oh, they're just going to be able to run it back and be right in that position, and it doesn't work out that way. Just ask the Detroit Lions. So, like, as we sit here right now, I don't know that there's too many people that are saying, "Oh, this Patriot team, they're gonna run through the AFC again next year." Like, there's a lot of competition, and suddenly, it becomes a marked game for the opponent when you're playing all of a
Yep.
sudden the team that
You're
was
not
in the
sneaking
Super
up
Bowl
on
last
anyone.
year. Exactly, and
Yeah.
it's just a whole different vibe with the team. So they're gonna have a lot to prove going into next year for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a factor. I think also, I just wanted to say before we get off of this, I think they also got thoroughly outcoached in this game. Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels, they did not have a good game. Particularly Josh McDaniels. They got outcoached, outclassed by, two coaches that just won Coach of the Year and Assistant Coach of the Year, who have vastly more experience, whether it was playing or coaching in Josh McDaniels' case in the Super Bowl, and just got thoroughly annihilated by a younger, less experienced staff. So I think that should kind of sometimes, when everyone was making such a big deal about the coaching advantage of experience versus inexperience, at the end of the day, it happens to be with the players in between the white lines. Coaches have a huge factor, but I think that is an element as well that I wanted to say. I don't think they had Vrabel and Josh McDaniels had a great night. And schedule wise, yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out for next season. I think it is going to be a factor, and they're gonna have to step up the game because they're not going to be sneaking up on anyone as it goes. Seattle winning Super Bowl 60, 29-13. Hopefully, anyone that won money out there on boxes or any other bets, hopefully you're spending it wisely, and hopefully you had some good Super Bowl parties as well. Bri, before we get out of here, we're going to play a nice fun game here, man. Brian and I are playing a little game here. We want to give our top 10 quarterbacks. We're going to go from 10 to 1 going into 2026 season. So this is not a legacy thing or who we think is going to be a future Hall of Famer. Starting next season, just for next season, who do we think are the top 10 quarterbacks going into next season? Bri, I'm excited to do this. Do you want to start, or you want me to give my number 10?
I'll start with number
Hit it.
10. I kind of compiled my list here at the last minute, and it's hard to make a list like this because, there's a lot of kind of factors that you think
Yeah.
about going into it, but we'll see how it shakes out. And we're going to start number 10, a guy that we've already talked about. I have him in the number 10
Okay.
spot. Yeah, I think it's kind of more of a ceremonious pick here coming off the Super Bowl win, but I'm putting Sam Darnold as
Okay.
my last one in on the top 10.
All right. For me, and I know this is a guy that we have roasted on this, but for me, top 10 quarterback, I still think he's a very good quarterback, even though he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs. I'm putting Justin Herbert at number 10. I think just the arm talent alone with Jim Harbaugh, he has had really good seasons. Could we get one season where he has a healthy team? Maybe. So we'll have to see. I know he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs, but going into the regular season, I'm putting Justin Herbert at 10.
So Herbert would have been on my just missed list.
Fair.
But
Trevor Lawrence is my just missed list.
Oh, interesting. All right, so if we go to number nine, I have another Super Bowl winner here. Another guy that we both have been critical about over time, but he has accomplished a lot in his career. He's on a very good team. I think he still deserves a spot here on the back end of the top 10. I'm going Jalen Hurts.
My number 9 is also Jalen Hurts. I think he's a really good quarterback. He deserves the credit where he is, but there's just a lot of guys I would pound for pound as a quarterback, not considering any of the other pieces around him that I would take. I'm putting Hurts at 9.
So we agree. Okay. Number eight, I know we're not going to agree because I know he was on your just miss list. I have him as my number
All
eight,
right.
and it's Trevor Lawrence.
Thanks,
You know, I,
Nation.
I saw a lot this year. He got on a great run. I know there were some kind of pedestrian years there, but I think now we're going to start to see the best of Trevor Lawrence over the next couple of years. I think the combination with Coach Liam Cohen is really going to work well. I see Lawrence's best days ahead of him, coming off a really good season. He's my number eight guy.
And number 8 for me is a guy that we've gone back and forth on, especially a couple of years ago when people were really high on this guy. But I still think he's a really good quarterback. I'm putting Brock Purdy here. I think look, the offense that he. What was not wrong with the Niners this year was their offense. And when he was out there and he was healthy, and I know those are injury concerns, he's a really damn good quarterback, man. Just check the tape on the Bears-Niners Sunday Night Football game. He's a great quarterback for me. He's still number 8. I think he deserves that.
Right, and we go to number seven. I have a feeling I'm going to be higher on this guy than you. But maybe I'll be wrong. I have Dak Prescott, number
All
seven.
right.
I think he had a terrific season this year. I think he's a guy who has dealt with a ton of pressure, as we know, being the Cowboys quarterback, and has really delivered through all that he's been through, injuries and
I like that.
otherwise. I like Dak a lot. I think he's deserving of this spot. I got him number seven.
At number 7 for me, and I had to think about it because you don't want to be too recency biased, but I'm putting Sam Darnold at number 7. I think he deserves to be in the top 10, to be top 7 going into next year. He's had now back-to-back 4,030 plus touchdown seasons. Like, the guy deserves it. He just won the freaking Super Bowl. He led 2 teams to 14-3. Like, he's got to be up there going into next season. He's got almost all of his offensive pieces returning. I'm taking Sam Darnold at 7.
So then we go to number six. I think this is the interesting pick because I think our top five, they may be in a different order, but I
Yeah,
think
I
we're going to
agree.
have the same five. So I'm interested here at six. And it's a tough pick because he's not coming off a very good year, but year one was just so extraordinary. I think everybody
Wow.
believes this guy is out of the world talented. I have Jaden Daniels as my number six quarterback. I know it wasn't a very good season. Washington, it's a turbulent franchise, as we know, but he was just too good as a rookie. Saw too much there to know that he's going to be a high level quarterback for a lot of years to come. I got Jaden Daniels here.
I like that pick. I really like Jaden Daniels. Just how many injuries he's had this season really kind of pushed me away from him. I couldn't put him in my top 10. For me, number 6, again, not recency bias, based on talent, even though I know he just had a terrible game that we just talked about, I am putting Drake May. And I know it might get some raucous in the comments. How can you put him over Sam Darnold? He just beat him. It's not like Darnold was lighting it up as we talked about in the Super Bowl. I just think pound for pound, Drake May is a star. He's a talented player. I might eat these words if they go against the hardest schedule next year and he's bad, but for me right now, he is at number 6.
So it turns out we have very different
Very
lists
different.
as I thought it might be. Now, I think our top five, we're going to
Yeah.
have the same five, but it may be in a different order.
Let's do it.
Number five, you may have him higher. This is where I had Patrick Mahomes. You know,
Wow, that's
he
crazy.
to me has he's fallen off the last couple of years.
Wow.
There's too many quarterbacks ahead of him that I think are just playing at a higher level right now. And you said we're taking away kind of the legacy element in
Yep.
this, so that makes it more for me like at times Mahomes wasn't really playing all that well. So I might be bold, but that's where I have him.
No, that is certainly bold, Brian. That is certainly bold. Wow. I am shocked by that. But hey, I support you giving your reasoning there. I get it. At number 5 for me is Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow, look, he's missed the playoffs 3 straight years. We know what he could do when he's not injured, which he is often. He's excellent, but he can't be in my top 3 or 4 when it's a guy that can't make the playoffs and can't stay healthy. He's going to stay at number 5.
Well, that's who I have as my next quarterback. He's
Number
still
4.
obviously elite, even though, we Bengals had their issues. I still think just a pure passing standpoint, I think right now he might be just a little bit better than even a guy like Mahomes right now, just from a pure passing
Wow.
perspective. It's always great to watch their offense with their litany of weapons. So that's where Burrow lands for
Damn,
me.
that's crazy. I can't believe Mahomes is still at 5. At number 4 for me is Lamar Jackson. I know he's going to go through with a new head coach and everything. I know he had a rough year. He was injured as well. But we're talking about the 2-time MVP. This guy is an excellent player. He's an all-time player. He deserves the respect where he doesn't have the same supporting cast as a lot of these guys. He's a damn good quarterback. I'm putting Lamar at 4.
And I have him at number 3. So I think we're kind of sensing a trend here. Yeah, I mean, not much more to add. Just an electrifying talent, running, throwing the ball. Maybe not his best season. It was a little injury prone, but the guy's just electric to watch. Needs to have more success in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing left to accomplish.
Yeah, number 3 for me is, and I agree with you on the Lamar points. At number 3 for me is my guy, Matt Stafford. The MVP, the reigning MVP of the league. He's a damn good, excellent player, man. He's at the top of his craft right now, and I know everybody wants to take the warranted caution with his age, his lack of mobility, but he's playing the game at kind of that Brady level stuff, and I'm not comparing the two. But in the terms of just the mind, when your body can't move and you're not athletic the same way, even though he was never this ultra athletic guy, for me, reigning MVP's got to be in the top 3. He's at number 3.
And he's number 2 for me, for all the reasons you said. I mean, he's had a phenomenal career now in 2 places, coming off his first MVP. Seems like he's playing as well as he ever has before, and he's had some prolific seasons in his past. And to me, looks like he could still play for a while. I mean, I don't know if it's just going to be one more season or what, but he's still very much at the top of his game and right there in the top 3, and I have him number 2.
I'll tell you, as a Rams fan, as long as that man's healthy, we'll take him for as many years as we can get out of him. At number 2 for me is Patrick Mahomes. So this is where we majorly differ. I know he's coming off a messed up knee, including a torn ACL. He has had some down years, even though they were making the Super Bowl. Statistically, it's looked like a struggle. I understand all that, but this guy is supremely talented, man. He really is. And if I'm looking at pound for pound of a quarterback, even counting out all the lack of weapons that he has had, he's an excellent player. I don't care about legacy. I don't care about any of that for this exercise. He's a damn good arm talent and an excellent quarterback. He's got to be at number 2 for me.
Also, as we get to our final spot, it seems that we are in agreement as we both have Josh Allen in the number
Yep.
1 spot. I mean, from a physical talent standpoint, this guy is the cream of the crop right now. And team around him's got to get a little better. He's got to eventually win that one Super Bowl, but from just a pure physical specimen standpoint, all he can do, running, throwing, I mean, he's one of one right now, and I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, we're in 100% agreement on that. Is Josh Allen for me as well at number 1. The only thing I will add to that is that he has to get it done in the postseason. I think sometimes he's had these great games and losses, particularly the 13-second game. He's also had some bad turnover games and some bad plays, particularly this one against Denver a few weeks ago. So he, just like Lamar, he doesn't get as much critiquing, I think, as Lamar does. He also has failed a ton in the playoffs. He really needs to come through and actually even reach a Super Bowl, never mind win one. But, Brian, that was fun, man. That was fun. I love doing our top 10. Those are Brian and I's top 10 quarterbacks heading into the 2026 season. I'm sure there'll be a lot of disagreements down below, so please let us know your thoughts on that. I'm still recovering from the Patrick Mahomes at number 5 Bry. I give you a lot of credit. That was bold there. And well, hey, we'll see how that shakes out next season, guys. Want to appreciate you guys being here. This is our last episode here officially of the 2025 season. We'll be back in a few weeks or so. Probably toward the 3/4 way of March, when the league year opens up, when we do our free agency episode, and there's a bunch of trades and all that's going on. And then also I will be covering, because I know it's not Brian's thing, I will be covering on the channel the NFL draft come April. So there is a lot more still football content to happen here for First and 10 here on Clueless Gamers. But this caps our run here, Bri. Yeah, we're done here. This is what, our 6th season, I think, in full, or 7th season, something like that. That we have done. It's come to an end. It's been a hell of a ride. We only missed one episode this entire NFL season. I did a few solo episodes, but we only missed one singular episode, which is our best ever, which I'm really, really proud and happy about as well. And, yeah, appreciate all the support, guys, throughout the season. Just commenting and liking, it really does help out, and just supporting and viewing it. We can't speak enough how much we love doing this, and we appreciate that. So just thank you, really, truly, from us here. Bri, any final thoughts here on this episode, and I guess as we wrap up the season as a whole here on First and 10?
Yeah, well, to think that we started this project originally in 2020, and you and I had talked about doing something like this back when we shared classes in high school,
Yeah.
and it took its share of time, but the fact that we got it rolling and that it's continued for as long as it has is really a wonderful thing. I mean, I don't know that I would have thought when we started, like, is this something we were going to do 5 years from now? And here we are,
Yeah.
still going strong. And hey, we may be still sitting here when we're 65 doing it. So it's a lot of fun. And I think the next step is maybe to get picked up by a big outlet. Let's get Sirius XM to pick us up,
Oh,
grow our
I would
fame
love
even
that.
more. But in all seriousness, even if it stays a smaller kind of thing, you and I love to do it. We love talking football. We love interacting with our fans. Or appreciative to everyone who tunes into us. Some people aren't even that big of football fans who just want to
That
hear
is a
what we
great
have to
point.
say.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really a lot of fun to do. We always look forward to football season, know that this is going to be a big part of our football season, and know that we'll be back, like you said, for free agency and some other things. But it's hard to believe that another season has come to a close, the wackiest season of all that we have covered. I don't think there's any question about that. But always appreciate you and all of our fans as well. So. Another great season. Terrific.
It's well said, Bri. I appreciate you as well, sir. And yeah, it's right up there with as the wacky season, probably with our first season, right? 2020, the COVID season was so
Yeah.
weird. We were covering games on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays. So I still think for me, that's our wackiest season, just from a logistic standpoint. But in terms of not really knowing who the best team was for most of the season, and just a lot of perennial teams just having down years. It was a really weird year, but it was a joy to do this with you. I look forward to doing this. It gives me an excuse to hang out with you and to talk about something that we love as well. And yeah, even if we stay a small operation, the fact that we're on a march to doing this for a decade, hey, if you're down and you want to be sitting here at 65 doing this, I am more than willing. As long as we have computers and we're able to do that, I'm more than willing to do that. So hell of a time, man. That's us signing off here, guys, for the 2025 and now into the 26 NFL season here on First and 10. As always, as I say, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends if you be so kind. And until next episode of First and 10, which will start the new season for the free agency episode, thank you for watching.